This is section 5.1 of AP Microeconomics. Let's get started. So previously in units 1 through 4, we've worked with product markets. That's where consumers are the buyers and the firms are the sellers. But now we're going to switch those roles, and here's why. Let's look at a small graphic that is introduced to us in AP Macro. This is called the circular flow model. In the circular flow model, here's half of it. You can see that households purchase products from the product markets and the money goes to the firm, and in return they receive goods and services. However, there's a problem. How in the world is the money supposed to get back to the households? That's why we have a circular flow model. As you can see by this more complete model, once the households spend the money and it goes to the firms spend money on factors of production and it goes back to the households. And that's why we have a factor market. This completes the circular flow model. All right. So a factor market is simply where the households are now the sellers. We are selling our land, labor, and capital, and the firms need those resources. They are the buyers. And that's where this unit can get a little tricky, is you have to remember that those roles are switched. The two most important terms in this unit is marginal revenue product and marginal resource cost. It is also known as marginal factor cost because a factor of production is a resource. Now, they might look like complex words, but the meanings are very simple. Marginal revenue product just means it's extra revenue gain from obtaining another resource. Now, in this unit, with the College Board, we focus mainly on workers, which is nice. They don't introduce land or capital much in here. The focus primarily is on workers. So, marginal revenue product is extra revenue gained from hiring another worker. If I own an ice cream shop and I hire another worker, how much additional sales am I going to get by hiring that worker? The cost, the marginal resource cost, is, well, what is the additional cost from hiring that worker? And that leads us to the profit maximizing rule. You're used to MR equals MC in the product market, but now we're going to look at hiring workers profit maximizing rule, which is where the marginal revenue product, the benefit from hiring another worker, is equal to MRC, the cost of hiring another worker. So as long as MRP is greater than or equal to MRC, you will hire those workers. Okay. The formula for marginal revenue product, change in total revenue over change in the quantity of labor, or mostly this is the formula you're going to use, the marginal product times the marginal revenue. And keep in mind, when we're working with perfectly competitive product markets, the marginal revenue will be price, and they'll give you the price a lot in there. All right. So let's look at some examples. Here's a table. We know it's perfect competition because the marginal revenue is constant. Remember, Mr. DARP, horizontal demand curve. The formula for marginal revenue product, as you can see, is simply taking the marginal revenue times the marginal product, and that gives us the MRP. Now, this actually makes sense. Don't just memorize this formula. Understand why that formula makes sense. The productivity of the worker, if they make 10 ice cream cones and they sell those cones for $220 each, they just made you $200. So this formula makes perfect sense of why that's the additional revenue from hiring another worker. If the wage rate were 20, you're going to hire 6 workers, because at a wage rate of 120, you'll continue to hire workers until they're equal. All of these workers 1 through 5, will make you profit, and workers 6, you'll simply break even on that worker. If the wage rate is 180, you're going to hire 4. Workers 1 through 4 are all going to earn you profit, and worker 5, you would lose $20 if you hire that worker, because they bring in 160 for you, but they cost you 180. Okay, so you stop at worker 4. You never, ever hire a worker where the cost is greater than the benefit. Seems like something we've said a lot this semester. And if the wage rate were 200, how many workers would you hire? 4. Now you might say, well, why 4 instead of 1? Well, think about it. Worker 1, you're simply breaking even. 0. Worker 4, you're breaking even. Who's making you the money? It's workers 2 and 3. Worker 2 is generating $80 in profit for you because they bring in 280, but they only cost you 200. Worker 3 brings in 240, but they only cost you 200. They're $40 in profit for you. So you're making your money from these two. You can't get the worker 4 without hiring workers 2 and 3. And I just stated the profit from the third worker is $40. You're taking the MRP minus the MRC. Now, if you were to hire 3 workers, let's just say the firm ends up hiring 3 workers. Wages are $100 each. So that means your total variable cost is $300. and your fixed costs are 50. That is a total cost of $350. What is the total profit for the firm? Well, profits are always equal to total revenue minus total cost. So we already figured out the total cost was 350. We just need to figure out, now, how in the world did I get revenue of 720? Well, if you're hiring 3 workers, each worker is bringing in these revenue amounts. So 200 plus 280 plus 240 is $720 in revenue, and they're costing you 350 plus the 300 plus the 50 in fixed costs is a total of 350. That means your total profit is 370. So as you can see, even though there's some new terminology here, most of this unit are concepts that we're just revisiting. We're just using a different scenario. The perspective might be a little bit different. However, the concept is identical. Okay. Now, if you notice, MRP is rising and then it falls. Well, believe it or not, the margin revenue product mirrors another curve that you've already seen. Think back to Unit 3, the marginal product curve. Okay. So, and the reason for that is because MR is usually going to be constant anyways. So it makes sense that the MRP would mimic the marginal product curve. Now, why does it rise? Because of we have increasing returns as a result of specialization, division of labor. And why does it eventually fall? We have diminishing returns as a result of our overcrowding. All right. Now, this is the FRQ from the 2023 AP Micro exam from one of the versions. This is one that I think you should try on your own, so I would stop the video and do this. But I'll just go through a few of these. The MRP, the second worker, I already established, is the marginal revenue times the marginal product. As you can see, a perfectly competitive product market with a price of 5 means the marginal revenue is 5. 5 times the marginal product. Well, the second worker's marginal product is 11. That is a total of $55 in revenue. That's what that worker's bringing in for you. Diminishing returns will begin with the third worker because marginal product is 9, then 11, then 7. So the third worker is the first worker where though that marginal product starts to diminish. All right. And then this is just another example of calculating economic profit, which is the certainly the total revenue minus the fixed costs and variable costs. Okay. And as a reminder, fixed costs do not affect profit maximization because they never affect MR, they never affect MC, and in this case, they don't affect MRP or MRC. Well, that's it for the first section of Unit 5.